Right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kyle van Merwe. I'm from Berkshire House. I teach English, and I joined Innovation in 2018 when I was afforded the opportunity to go through to ISTE, which was a whirlwind, enlightening experience. And on my trip home, obviously, then it was implementing technology into our department, as well as leveraging that technology for various means. That became incredibly, I suppose that became what was really important for us with COVID. And I think that there are a lot of reasons why we were able to move so seamlessly onto the technological front. And within 3 days, as you've all heard, we went from being in the classroom space to being in the digital space. So for me especially, we used it wasn't so much as Teams is our main focus, but it was also finding the right tool for the right job. And as you can see, there was a lot of using literature, and especially how do we make literature come to life, through a black screen, essentially. So it's literally speaking from the page to the screen. That's how we had to do it. And we had to really leverage a lot of technology in order to do that, which meant that we made use of things like Sora, which was our overdrive facilitation of library books, as well as Setworks that we were able to screen live and stream those and share those with kids with our girls while we were actually teaching our lessons, making use of YouTube, which we made use a lot of, sharing different videos, using different audios, especially when you're trying to teach grade 12 Antony and Cleopatra, which was quite an interesting process as well, and trying to make it sound as exciting in a 70-minute session when girls are known to be a little distracted at times. So YouTube helped us facilitate that process and kept them interested. I think that's, we've heard a lot from essentially the earlier phases, but I think definitely in high school, our girls are very easily, or so shall we say, teenagers are very easily distracted, and especially with so much technology at their disposal, leveraging that technology in the right way meant that we had to focus their attention. And so using, essentially we had this literature exploration, making use of YouTube, making use of PowerPoint live templates that our girls would be working on through the process of the lesson, adding to it as we went along. So they would be contributing to the lesson as it sort of moved through, as we moved through the content, as they highlighted particular quotes. The chat was very important as well. We would set up class monitors to moderate the chat so that there were any questions that came through. So a lot of it was just grappling and engaging with this technology. Especially this idea of learner-centered pedagogy was one of the things that we had to focus on. But how do you do that when it's words on a page? And we made a lot of use of, as I said, with YouTube. But on top of that, we also then we're able to enable things like prepared reading through the process of Flipgrid, oral prepared speeches. We did all our CAT speeches on Flipgrid, and our girls were able to present, and we would then witness or watch. And we're able to take notes and inform them and upload the rubrics and then send it out to them as well. So it really, in terms of technology and through as English as a subject, it gave us quite a dynamic playground to engage with technology. Now, forms was also played quite a big part, particularly in the junior grades. We often made use of forms for quizzes, for little language quizzes, just checkpoints along the way, just to make sure that our girls were focused and were taking note of what was going on. Sometimes we would have a little quiz based on the content that we had covered in that session, particularly if you're engaging with the text. I think that was ultimately something that was easier for us as teachers, just to make sure we knew what we were talking about. And you can see there's a couple of examples just as you move through the slides there of different forms of technology that I made use of, that we made use of. But especially you can see we've got YouTube, Overdrive, Sora, PowerPoint. We were doing graphic novels in grade 7. We had Warhorse in grade 8. So it was really, we had quite dynamic literature that we needed to explore through technology. And the girls really enjoyed it. I think that particularly our grade 10 girls, being able to engage with authors and content and articles online from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and grapple with those discussions in a live forum where we spent 70 minutes just discussing chapters in the novel. I think it gave us a different level of engagement. And I think for the senior girls, it allowed them to become quite autonomous in their learning, as well as gave them a little bit more agency of what to prioritize, as opposed to just sitting in a classroom. They now had to take that information from that lesson and apply it to the task that we gave them afterwards. And I think that a lot of times we sit in our classrooms and, you know, we're the safety net, whereas during COVID, they didn't have that safety net. I think that it was definitely present, but they were there. They had to engage on their own individual basis and move through with the support of their teachers, as opposed to with us in front of them all along the way. So as I said, when we look at from the page to the screen, from our live facilitations of meetings, from our engagement with Anthony and Cleopatra live productions, it was a slightly different process than me reading over words of dialogue over a Teams call. Now the girls could actually watch and engage, and then you would talk to it over the dialogue, which made it a little bit more entertaining and a little bit more exciting for them. The 7s, 8s, and 9s, we were able to have quite a lot more dynamic fun, in the sense that we started using things like Instagram posts, and they would have to reflect on different characters and different moments, and they were able to reconstruct these different Instagram posts. We for one of our characters in Pashmina, Priyanka, our girls had to create her Instagram life, essentially. And then they were able to experience it and sort of talk about it and hashtag about it. And then they showed it as a live feed on a PowerPoint template that we would use in class, which was quite engaging and fun for the girls. Our grade 8s, they engaged in a different kind of technological sort of, what I would call it more of a graphic design component, where we used their skills of visual literacy to design trading cards based on various literary horses, with our study of Warhorse. So the girls got to be really practical and really engaged, and then they would present these as live presentations, so in class live format, sharing the screen, actually engaging with technology, as well as be able to present them on video feed and Flipgrid. But I think what we really were able to gain from this experience was that our girls were not without, and they were very much able to move from that classroom space into the digital space seamlessly, just as we were. And with a little bit of hand-holding, I think that we were able to have quite a successful and rewarding process, and not just having blank screens and icons looking at us, because that was a portion of our time. But for the most part, it was also that when girls were engaged during the process and actually teaching us about the things that they had put together, it meant that we had that classroom dynamic engagement achieved again. And as I said before, I think, you know, we were able to grapple with some complex themes of xenophobia and representation of women in text. And these are all, you know, these are young 14-year-old girls who are able to grapple with these very complex constructs. And they were all able to do that through the medium of technology. And it wasn't just us sort of filling them as vessels. They were engaging with this along the way. And I think that what COVID was able to show us was how important that classroom space is. And if we weren't able to recreate that classroom space in a digital forum, then we could very easily lose our students. And I don't think that, I think that that reflexive pedagogy, and I think that the enthusiasm that we had as staff, we were able to take the moment and harness it really, really successfully. And And I have to say that I wouldn't have been as successful if it wasn't for the team that I have behind me, if it wasn't for the innovation team that I work alongside with on a daily basis, and also my own department, being able to sort of take sections of work and run with it, sections for the grades, so sort of working on our expertise and making use of lecture style teaching as well. It's really sort of changed the dynamic of how we teach, and especially how our girls learn. And I think that I've been learning along the process every single day. There isn't a day that I haven't learned something new or had to be reminded of something new. So from an English perspective, from a classroom perspective, and then in the next realm, it was from an extramural perspective of debating. And our coaches were all too eager to get debating back on the go, and our girls were super excited. And we were able, through teams, we were able to have live debates and live discussions, especially when the world was so polarized by so many things that were plaguing us at the time, or are still plaguing us. And our girls were able to, from their homes, from their beds, from their desks, from their cars, were able to engage with these things live with the facilitation of not only just their debating coaches, but also their teachers and their peers. And I think that we were able to give our girls that full experience of not just the classroom, but also the holistic education as well. So from that side of things, yeah, I have really, really enjoyed it. It's been challenging, but it's been challenging in a really good way. And I think that as educators, we need to realize that, yes, technology might fail us, but also it will enable us. And sometimes we just have to roll with it and be a little bit more fluid and flexible, and we will succeed.